What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate. Today, the road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is taking us now into Starkville, or some may call it Stark Vegas, Mississippi, where your final team out of the SEC is ready. It's the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and a horrible season for Mississippi State last year. All the reason to see improvement here in 2025. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank you all so much for clicking on this video, and of course, for helping to support the channel. You want to support it even further? Many ways you can do that, but the biggest way, go down below, hit the subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell, because turning on notifications during prediction season ensures you won't miss an upload, especially not one of your favorite team. And we are so close to wrapping up the Power 4 teams, which we will do so on Sunday. I also am getting into the sports media industry professionally. I'm a sports media graduate, and if you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do in the industry while still being up to date on what goes on these very YouTube channels, you can give me a follow at TailgateNate29 on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it, and Instagram. You can even email me at TailgateNate29@gmail.com. You look right over here at Jeff Lebby, your Mississippi State head coach, yet again in 2025. And year one for Jeff Lebby just did not go as planned. 2-10, 0-8 in conference, and they were the worst team in the SEC last year. However, there were some unfortunate events and injuries, especially one to this guy over here. You'll learn his name in a second, and a lot of returning talent coming in this season to signify some hope that there is going to be improvement in Starkville here in 2025. And no matter how good or bad the team is, the cowbells will still ring loud. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview. Bam, offense to the left. Bam, defense to the right. At the end of the video, we are going to go through the Mississippi State football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. And this video overall is here to tell all of you what I think about the Bulldogs in 2025. Before we do get started, though, right down below me, returning production numbers are, of course, as always, according to ESPN, and they do factor in transfer portal additions up to a certain percentage. You can take that with a grain of salt, though. Even right down below that, recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are according to 24/7 Sports. And now with all that said and done and out of the way, let's get into the jargon around me. But before we talk about the offense, we gotta address what this asterisk up here means by Anthony Tucker's name. So he really is not the offensive coordinator. He is not even a co-offensive coordinator. He is the assistant head coach to Jeff Lebby, because Lebby is running the show offensively. He is the offensive coordinator. However, I felt like it would be noteworthy to list Anthony Tucker as, according to hailstate.com, the official website for Mississippi State Athletics, the only assistant head coach is Anthony Tucker, and he is the passing game coordinator, also does help coach the running back. So has a hand in a little bit of everything, as well as I think being the lead assistant here under Jeff Lebby's staff. Now that that is out of the way, let's talk about the quarterback position. Michael Van Buren was the lead guy last year, but it didn't start out that way. Let me read his stat line first. 1,886 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions on 54.7% completion percentage. He is now transferring out of here to Baton Rouge. But again, coming into the season, he was not the primary starter. That was a former Baylor transfer by the name of Blake Shapen, the guy you saw right over here on the thumbnail screen just a little bit ago. Blake Shapen played really, really well before a very unfortunate injury, and I believe week 3 or 4. His season was cut very, very short, but he is going to return to this team to be that starting quarterback. 974 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 1 interception on 68.5% completion percentage, was averaging 9 yards per attempt. That's not 9 yards per completion. That number would be a whole lot higher. But again, he was playing really, really well, and just an unfortunate injury, and Michael Van Buren came in. It's the best option they had, and he did very meh. He just did not play that great. If Blake Shapen can get back and get healthy and continue to show the production that he showed through the first, I'll say third to a quarter to a third of the season, like he started out last year, if that continues on into this year, I think you're going to see Mississippi State drastically improve already, even if nothing else gets better because of the quarterback play. Now, I do have a little bit of concerns with Shapen, because it was a shoulder injury to his throwing arm. And sometimes it can be really hard to recover from injuries like that. However, if he is good, rearing 100% ready to go, I think you're going to see some good things out of the Bulldog offense this year, especially because you take a look at the talent that's going to surround Blake Shapen this year. Well, your top two leading rushers from last season are going to be coming back. Your lead man in Devon Booth, who had 759 yards and 5 touchdowns a season ago, will return along with Johnny Daniels, who had 540 yards and 4 touchdowns, both of them on 5 yards per carry. Now, you also do get a transfer coming into the room in Fluff Bothwell, who is going to be transferring into this program from South Alabama, where he was a pretty good offensive piece with the Jaguars last year. So your running back room only gets deeper by adding in the USA transfer. That's not United States of America, obviously, that is University of South Alabama. You take a look at the wide receiver room. It did get gutted. You are going to be losing your top target in Kevin Coleman. He is off now to Mizzou after posting 932 yards, 6 touchdowns on 74 catches, which was more than double what any other offensive pass catcher had and more than triple what any other wide receiver had last year. In fact, even if it's not, it's very, very close to triple of what any other wide receiver had on this team last season. Led the team in pretty much every single major passing, or I should say receiving statistical category. And again, more transfers are going to leave as well. However, Jordan Mosley is going to be coming back. He was your second leading receiver last year with 405 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he was second among qualified wide receivers, only behind that of Mario Craver, who again is transferred out, in terms of yards per catch with 17.6 and can be a deep ball threat there as well. And a plethora of transfers are going to be entering this room. I'll just list off some of them here. Anthony Evans is going to be coming in from Georgia. You're going to have Brennan Thompson come over from Oklahoma. Those are probably the two guys that are going to see the most time with Jordan Mosley, but you also have Marcus Allen, Aiden Williams, Jerron Glover, and a ton of other guys that are entering through the portal, as well as freshmen coming in to this 28th ranked recruiting class. What's more, in the pass catching room, your lead tight end in Seydou Traore is going to be coming back. He was second on your team in catches last year, and overall was 5th on your team in receiving. The lead tight end, 34 catches, 361 yards, did have a touchdown or 2 last season as well. He's going to see some new pieces entering behind him through the portal. Although Cameron Ball does return, he's going to see a much bigger role this year, and guys like Max Reese and Sam West both enter in through the transfer portal. What's more, on the offensive line, after lots of newness to this offensive line last year, I think they replaced 4 or 5 offensive starters a year ago. There finally is some consistency on the offensive line room. According to ourlads.com, 3 players who were on this team last year are projected to start. And I think at least 2 of those are returning starters from last year, if not all 3. And you're going to get some transfers to not rebuild this offensive line, but fill into those gaps. The center position being a big one here with this Bulldog program. So overall, you take a look offensively, I think the wide receiver room overall could take a little bit of a step back, but I love how deep their running back room is. I think Seydou Traore is a pretty solid tight end. My only concern here too is this is an offensive line that can get better, needs to find some things to improve on, allowed 38 sacks last season, and overall, how does Blake Shapen recover from this injury? I think that's the biggest question I have for this offense. If he is good and he is ready to go, I think you are going to see a wonderfully built offensive unit, especially with the offensive mind of Jeff Lebby. It's the defensive side of the ball that you do have a lot more concerns with, as Coleman Hutzler will be taking over the defense yet again this season. Again, as that defensive coordinator, the unit just severely disappointed last year, especially in being able to manufacture those big moments. They only forced 12 turnovers last year. That's only an average of 1 per game. And they only were able to muster up 10 sacks last year. They were one of the worst teams in the country as far as that department goes. On top of tackles for loss, they couldn't really generate many of those. This is just a defense that I think has got to amp up that aggressiveness level. And overall, it's just got to improve, I think, things schematically as well and getting some talent to fit in. Speaking of talent, you are going to be losing quite a bit of it. quite a bit of big names. However, there are a lot of big names that do return, as that 68% returning production number would have you to believe. And it is to be believed in this case. Sometimes those numbers can be misleading. Don't not believe it. I don't know where I was trying to go with that. Anyway, let's talk about the talent that's on this defense. On the defensive line, well, you are going to be returning Travion Williams. He was your leading tackler among defensive linemen last year with 33 tackles, half a sack, and you're going to get some other pieces that are coming back as well. But basically, a whole lot of depth is going to be replaced with, albeit yet a pretty talented portal class. Yes, you are going to be returning a couple of guys here and there, but for the most part, it's going to be a lot of newness on the offensive line, or on the defensive line, my apologies, whether that's transfers or guys playing in much bigger roles than they did last season. Even Travion Williams himself might not be a starter up in the 3-3-5 defense. Will Whitson, Jameel Burrows, and Red Hibbler are all transfers coming in, all experienced guys. They're either redshirt seniors or graduates that are coming into this program. And right now, that's your projected starting defensive line, although guys like Travion Williams, Deontay Anderson, Calvin Dinkins, all returners, are going to be mixed into that unit as well. Linebacker-wise, Stone Blanton is now with San Fran in the NFL. A dynamic piece to this defense last year, 124 tackles with half a sack last season, 3 passes defended, also did force 2 fumbles while recovering one of those. So really, really good talent in San Francisco. Got themselves quite the linebacker. Again, going to go play for the 49ers. However, Nick Mitchell coming back into this room is an absolutely massive return. He really is he really is a great returning piece in this linebacker room that will help lead it. Third leading tackler last year with 80 tackles, 2 pass defended. Did have one of the lone interceptions out of this defensive unit last year. Brandon Jennings is also going to be coming back. And yep, you guessed it, more big-time transfers coming in to this position. Most notably, however, in Jalen Smith out of Tennessee. 34 tackles a year ago. He's coming back, or I should say he's coming in. A guy coming back, however, is Zachary Tillman. He led your team in sacks last year with more than triple what anyone else had. 3.5 sacks for Tillman last year. So that's a big get back in your linebacker room. And as far as your defensive back room goes in the secondary, well, I told you Stone Blanton had 124 tackles last year. He did not lead this team in tackles. No, that one, or I should say that honor went to Isaac Smith. He had 127 of them last season, along with 3 passes defended and a forced fumble out of the safety room. He is going to highlight the returners here on this team. It's an experience-laden secondary that, yep, again, you guessed it, is going to see some more transfers enter this group. Most notably, however, in Tony Mitchell. He's coming from East Mississippi Community College, where he originally was with the Alabama Crimson Tide, so is very familiar to the SEC realm. Isaac Smith coming back to play nickelback, and you have a lot of other returning pieces and some more transfers that at very least will provide to be some good depth pieces. What's more, in your special teams room, Kyle Ferry is coming back to be your primary place kicker, while a new punter is going to enter the mix here, whether that is Ethan Pulliam or a true freshman in Nathan Tice is remain to be seen. So there's your special teams report, because kickers are people too. I already talked about the offense. When I talked about the defense, again, everything has got to get better. And yeah, hope the transfers can really help with that. They did bring in a lot of talent through the transfer portal, guys that have seen Power 4 time, and then guys from the group of 5 slash the community college ranks that have been some pretty solid options over the past couple of years at their respective programs, and guys that were very disruptive, especially those 3 transfers that I mentioned to you up on the defensive front. But everything has got to get better this year. You need your offensive line to be better. And again, still the question lingers about how healthy Blake Shapen will be. And pretty much everything defensively needs to see some level of improvement this season. A lot of good individual performances. They got to be able to put the whole package together. And might I add here too as well, I mean, good luck trying to piece everything together when you have a schedule that's as tough as this, especially when you play in the SEC after the year you had last year. While a lot of people feel like there are a lot of teams in the SEC that are only going to get better this season, Mississippi State does have a fairly favorable road. There's no Alabama, there's no LSU, but you still have a lot of heavy hitters that are on this schedule, as you're going to see when you are in the SEC. Hey, we'll take a look at the schedule here in a minute, but right down below me, odds currently, according to FanDuel. Again, they are current as of recording this video, are subject to change, although I don't think Mississippi State's odds are going to change much, providing some context to how good the odds makers think Mississippi State is going to be this year. And they also think it's still going to be a struggle of a year for Mississippi State, much like it was last season. Longest odds to win the conference, one of the longest odds to win the national championship, and I'm sure they have I'm sure they have pretty long odds to make the college football playoff as well. But 3.5 is the over-under win total. This is a schedule in which they could get that, but I'll explain that number here just in a little bit. However, you do have to start diving on into your non-conference slate, and I say this pretty much every time I see it. I love that Power 4 teams are now going on the road to these Group of 5 programs. Mississippi State is going to go on the road to Southern Miss. Now, is it going to lead to any sort of advantage for the Golden Eagles this year? I don't think so. 1-11 last season, one of the worst teams in the FBS ranks. They are revamping everything through the transfer portal, especially offensively. Just one returning starter offensively. I believe it's their tight end in Kyron Keith, and he might not even have been a full-time starter last year if my memory serves me correctly, although I would have to fact check myself on that. I think any way you slice it, especially if you do get the best version of Blake Shapen, a guy that we saw get put out on the football field last year, I think Mississippi State should roll on the road against Southern Miss. Now, even though you have Arizona State at home, I think Arizona State is going to be one of the more talented teams in the country this year, and I really like their chances to repeat as conference champions of the Big 12, because everybody is coming back. Aside from Cam Scadaboo, you get Sam Levitt back, you get Malik McClain back, you get Jordan Tyson back, you get Kyson Brown back, you get Kanye Udo and Jalen Moss coming in through the transfer portal at the running back and wide receiver positions respectively, and that's not even to mention what this defense brings back. You return one of the best safety duos in the country in Miles Rouser and Xavier Alford, along with a ton of defensive production that made this team as good as it was last year. It made it to the college football playoff, won the Big 12 conference, and returns it returns some of the most amount of production across the entire country. That tells you the Sun Devils are still going to be a good unit this year. I like what they got, and I don't think Mississippi State stands much of a chance. However, they should win their next 2 games here pretty comfortably. At home against Alcorn State, big deal, FCS program. Mississippi State should be able to take care of them. And then at home against Northern Illinois. This is a Husky team that pulled off one of the biggest upsets, or I should say the biggest upset in program history last year when they went on the road and beat Notre Dame. I don't necessarily foresee that happening again, and those are just one of the upsets that you just can never see coming. It's like App State beating Michigan. No one in their right mind is going to predict it to happen. I don't think anyone in their right mind would predict this one, even though I do think Northern Illinois got some pieces that individually can give Mississippi State trouble. I think talent-wise, Mississippi State has got a little bit more than what the Huskies possess over there in the Chicago area. Now you dive on into SEC play, and I did say earlier that Mississippi State does play a lot of teams in the SEC that feel like they're going to get somewhat better this year. Florida, Texas A&M, even Ole Miss, I think, feels that way. You do start out with a team that I think inevitably is going to regress this season. And to me, it is not an overreaction to the Nico Iamaleava situation, because even though you are losing him, I think Joey Aguilar is a solid enough quarterback to figure it out. You have no more Dylan Sampson. Your pass catching room has been gutted. You lose your best defensive player in James Pierce, among many other depth pieces. I think Tennessee is going to regress this year. But again, I like Joey Aguilar. I still like some of the pieces that are around there. They're in one of the best offensive systems in the country in Josh Heupel. And even though I think this is a volunteer team that's going to kind of switch identities a little bit and be a team that's going to start to lean on their defense a lot more than trying to score 50 points to win every game like you saw a couple of seasons ago, I still think this is the Tennessee team that is really, really talented, and I think is more talented than Mississippi State. Now, they do get this one at home, and if Blake Shapen can put on a great performance, wide receivers ball out in this defense, probably is going to have to come up with some pretty big turnovers. I think they got a shot here, but I think it's a long one, and Tennessee does win that game. On the road against Texas A&M, I don't think you win that one. Again, the Aggies, one of the teams that are looking to get better in the SEC this season, finally feel like they found their guy at the quarterback position. You have Le'Veon Moss that is coming back in from injury. Defensively, Yeah, well, you do lose some pretty important pieces off of last year's team. You do add through the transfer portal, and I couldn't think of the quarterback's name for a second. It is Marcel Reed, so I need to get my get back on that. TJ Searcy, Tyler Onyedem, they're both transferring into play the defensive line for you. They're going to have one of the better linebacking duos in the SEC, maybe in the country, with Torian York and Scooby Williams. Really talented secondary. I think they beat Mississippi State talent-wise in every single position, and I think for the most part, Florida does as well. And again, road game in the Swamp, even after the bye week, Mississippi State is going to have a really hard time trying to contain DJ Lagway. The dual threat quarterback really emerged last season, as did their true freshman running back Jaden Baugh, who I think is in for a fantastic sophomore season. Like what they did in the wide receiver room, they got some really good defensive pieces, and I do think Florida finally is going to be able to put it all together and be a really solid bunch out of the SEC this season. You're not going to beat Texas. Texas might be the most talented team in the entire country. I really do believe that. Again, you got a little known name of Arch Manning at the quarterback position. Running back room is stout. Wide receiver room is awesome, and probably one of, if not the best defensive unit overall in the entire country, with just NFL first round caliber talent at every single position. Texas is going to be really good this year. They're going to be one of the best teams in the country and are one of the front runners to win the national championship. Even though it's in Starkville, no chance for an upset here, in my opinion. Texas does beat Mississippi State. I also do think now you go on the road to play Arkansas, and I think the Razorbacks get you here as well. While I don't think everything is going to work out too well for Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks this year, I still think Taylon Green, much like some players like Marcel Reed and DJ Lagway and Arch Manning, at the quarterback position, they are going to give this Mississippi State team fits. And Arkansas still got a lot of talent built up around him, still a lot of good defensive pieces. Sam Pittman's probably one of those coaches that's on the hot seat this year, or at least very close to it. His seat is starting to get warmer. Jeff Lebby may be on that as well, and I think Arkansas's got the more talented roster. Plus, this game is in Fayetteville, so I'll take the Hogs there. And much like the game against Texas, look, even though you got it at home, I just don't think you're going to pull off an upset against the Georgia team that I think is going to prove that they are more physically tough than they showed throughout a lot of last season, according to some people. And again, not necessarily my opinion, but it is what is being said out there. I do think this is the Georgia team that is very capable to go win a national championship. Does Gunnar Stockton have questions at the quarterback position for me? Yeah, I really want to see how he plays. He hasn't impressed me all that much when I have seen him play, but Georgia's got the pieces all around him to be able to do it. Running back, wide receiver, and you know they got that dog defense to rely on there. The Mean Machine in the red and black will take care of the Cowbells in Starkville. On the road against Missouri, much like Tennessee, I do think Missouri also takes a step back this year. No more Brady Cook, no more Luther Burden, and the defense did regress after you lost Blake Baker over to LSU. And while I think that's going to see signs of improvement this season, again, losing those two important pieces offensively, not to mention your running back tandem in Carroll and Noel, two former Sun Belt guys that are now both off playing in the NFL. I think Missouri could struggle a little bit this season, but I don't think they're going to struggle here. Bo Pribula, I think, is a guy that, if he fits in well, is a guy that Missouri can absolutely win with this season, and I like a lot of the other talent that surrounds this Tiger program. And then you get it right off here with the Ole Miss Rebels. You do get a bye week to prepare for this one. It's a rivalry game at home. Again, I just think Ole Miss is way too talented, especially offensively. I think the offense is going to be way too much for Mississippi State to handle, especially at the pace that they like to run things. And I do believe that Ole Miss, you take a look at Austin Simmons at the quarterback position. Even though this offense got gutted, that meant losing Jackson Dart, a lot of really important pieces on the running back and wide receiver room. I do believe this is an Ole Miss team that's still got a boatload of offensive talent, and defensively probably going to regress a little bit this year, but I don't think as much as some people may be thinking. And so, with all the games highlighted, unfortunately for you Bulldog fans, 3-9 is the way that I see this season going. Technically an improvement for last year, but I know it's not going to feel good enough to Bulldog fans. I think you do have some moments here for some upsets, like maybe you can upset Tennessee at home. And of course, the rivalry game against Ole Miss, you can never count that one out. You just never know how that game is going to go because of the rivalry aspect. And you get those ones at home. But a lot of the games that I feel like are a little bit more winnable, you have to go play on the road. That's Arkansas. That's Missouri. And yes, you get Arizona State at home, but they're going to be one of the more talented teams in the Big 12 conference. Technically an improvement from last year. Again, I have some questions about Blake Shapen. Maybe if he's able to put everything together, they can go on the road and beat Arkansas. They go on the road and beat Missouri. Maybe they pull off an upset against one of these teams at home. I just think it's going to be another struggle year. I don't think the talent level is quite there as compared to the rest of the SEC. And truly, I've just never been a fan of Jeff Lebby as a head coach. Hopefully, he can prove me wrong, but I think it's going to be another struggle bus year for the fans in Starkville. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.